Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back. We are currently discussing the Legend of Hero Trails series.
Yes. And it's specifically the Trail series because the Legend of Heroes is its own series.
Which was a spinoff of the Dragon Slayer series, which, oh my God.
Yeah.
We will try and play all of those one day on Home on the RNG.
Yep.
We'll see what happens. But today we are specifically talking about two of the games in the series, known as the Crossbell Duology. These two have not had an official U.S. Western release
Yet.
but it has been announced now. And honestly, before we get into the games themselves, I find this utterly fascinating. So there was a group called Geofront, named after a part of the city in the game. And they did fan translations of the first two games. And they are fun. Well, I only saw their fan translation of the first game, which we'll get to why, but it's great.
Yeah, it's terrific.
They did some quality of life improvements to the game itself. They actually fixed some bugs, and they did a really great translation job of the first game. But they didn't offer it for free. The translation was free, but you had to get a legally owned copy of the game. They sent you to a store in Japan where you could download a virtual copy that their patch would work on. So you did pay for the game.
Yeah.
And that's the version I played.
Yes.
And it was great. Then they started working on translating the second one, obviously. They weren't done with it when I played it. There's a lesser translation. It doesn't fix bugs. It doesn't include quality of life.
Literal.
Yeah, but it works. So that's what I played. Shortly after Geofront, and I mean within a month of Geofront releasing their translation of the second game, it got pulled offline because the company that actually, Falcom, which makes the Trails in the Sky series, announced a partnership with Geofront to officially release official translations of the two games to the West. And I think that's just super cool that the company just went, hey, you put a lot of work into this. You want to work with us to make it official?
Dear Nintendo.
No
There
kidding.
is a translation of Mother 3 that
has
great.
been offered to you for free.
And you don't do anything with it.
Mother 3's doesn't even make like my top 20 favorite games, but for the love of God, what are you doing? There's a translation out there. Just release it.
Yeah. So I'm excited that we're going to have official releases of this, but I am just a little miffed right now that I have to wait for Trails of Asher, the second game, because I did not play it. I'm telling you right now, these are my favorite Trails games.
And you've only played one of them?
And I haven't even played the second one because I loved the first one so much.
So the two Crossbell games are Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, which is very hard to keep straight because it's not just Trails in the Sky 1, 2, 3, Trails of Cold Steel 1, 2, 3, 4. And both games entirely take place in the city-state of Crossbell, which is just a giant city and some outlying regions. And at first, when I first realized, wait, this is it? This is it? This is the whole world? I thought, this is going to get dull pretty quick.
And it doesn't.
It doesn't. The city...
That's what I love about these games.
It's often thrown around like the city or the setting becomes like a character, but it does. You start to feel a bond with this city because you are in it so often. You know its nooks and crannies. You know its citizens. You feel... When I finally got to go to Crossbell in the Trails of Cold Steel games, I was excited because I felt like I was going back to visit an old friend. Like, yes, Crossbell. Yeah. So in the Crossbell Duology, you play Lloyd Bannings. You're a cop.
That didn't age well, but...
I was looking forward to... Because I talked about how the Bracer Guild is such a cool idea to explain why you do all the stuff that you do.
Yeah.
Now, when I learned that in this next series you're playing a police officer, it's like, oh, this is going to be interesting to see how they change all the mechanics because now you're a cop, so things are going to work differently. And instead you end up being a special department, a special newly created department of the police that works like bracers.
Yeah.
So... Now,
the
eventually,
police chief likes the bracers, and so he integrated the Bracer Guild
because there aren't a lot of. Well, no, there are bracers.
There are bracers.
I jumped forward. Yeah, there are bracers in Crossbell, but and they have better PR than the cops.
They
is
do,
the thing.
yes.
They want the police department to get some good PR, so they want a bracer.
Functioning as a Bracer Guild because to get better PR for the cops.
Now, eventually the sub-quests and everything do start to have a different flavor to them than the first game. They do feel a little bit more like being a detective.
Mm-hmm.
So it turned out, like me being concerned about the city being the main location, to be a worry that didn't manifest. Right. But you played Lloyd Banning, a cop whose older brother died in the job.
Yeah, he was also a cop.
And joined with you is Ellie Big Boobs.
Mm-hmm, that is her official name.
I believe that's her official
last
name.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you get to have the little super smart girl.
Yeah, there's a 14-year-old on the police force.
Yeah.
Tio Tot.
Yes, because the Trails games loves their little girls who are super smart.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And don't talk like little girls.
I particularly like Tia. I mean, I like Tita. I particularly like Tio because she's very dry.
Yes, she has
a very
She
dry
develops
person.
a very dry sense of humor. She doesn't have a lot of personality at first because she's been through some stuff.
They put their little girls through a lot of stuff, too.
But
it's really cruel.
As she socializes, you actually get to see her grow into a complete person, which is really cool. And then the fourth member is Randy, the
and that tells you everything that you need to know about him, his name.
The ladies' man with a dark past.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons these games are my favorite. I think that core group of 4 is an extremely strong cast. None of them are my favorite characters individually, but as a team, they're my favorite group in all of these, in this whole series.
It actually is interesting because, like comparing the location, we went from an entire country where we were running around to different regions to one city.
Yeah.
And we went from a cast of 15 select playable characters to 4 with occasional guests.
Yeah.
It's like they distilled it.
Yes.
And you really get a stronger essence of what these games are about. And again, it's a matter of you need to go everywhere in town and talk to everybody anytime the plot advances at all to experience all of this world. It is 100 hours you're going to be spending in this game just talking to everybody about everything. And it is a true duology. It is 2 stories.
They didn't add any third thing.
Yeah, but it does, like the first story does have a climax all its own. Like it's not a cliffhanger.
Right.
Which is also true of Trails in the Sky 1. It wasn't really... No, I'm sorry.
It was an absolute cliffhanger.
I was thinking about the final boss battle, and I was like, oh, that wrapped it up. No, you're right. It ends on a complete cliffhanger.
This one, I was going to say, is another reason I like the Crossbell games, is because the first one works as a complete and finished story.
Yes.
With a few loose threads hanging on for a second game.
It also ties up some threads from Trails in the Sky, which I have a few problems with narratively. Joshua and Estelle do come back in this first game, along with Renee. Rin, who is a minor... who is
another little girl that's been through some real hell.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have an ongoing story from the second game through the third Trails in the Sky, and then that storyline is resolved in Crossbell, which... I'm not as big a fan of because I feel like they should the Crossbell games should get to stand alone a little bit more. Like, it was cool to see Joshua and Estelle, but there's too much plot time devoted to them, I feel. Like, let me spend some more time with these characters.
Though I liked seeing them, and I liked how it was integrated into the story of Lloyd.
Well, and then major spoiler, maybe I should save that. We haven't filmed an official review for the second game. And
not the second game.
For Azure.
Yeah.
I'll save my opinions for there because it's very spoilery, and we're just talking overview here mainly.
We can talk about the journey of Sammy the Maid, who is...
'Tis I, Sammy the Maid.
Sammy is the caretaker of the Raisins apartment, the Villa Raisins apartment building in Crossbell, and she has a whole arc that goes through the Crossbell games and the
Cold Steel games.
3rd and 4th games. Yes.
Yeah, the Crossbell games are... really,
I loved that they were able to tell that story in one city in the surrounding area, and it never felt old. Never felt like it got old.
In fact, when you do go back there in Cold Steel 3 and 4, I was like, why can't I go to all the places?
Yeah.
I want to go to all of Crossbell
You want to
again.
go to the Honey Village and the mining
you never get to go to Amorca again or
Mm-hmm.
Gates, or you never even get to go to the downtown district, which they say they revamped, but you never get to see it. And then the second one introduces more characters to the core group, and they actually, like, your group almost kind of disbands because everybody's off doing their own thing.
They're disbanded at the beginning, and then
so you get Wazy Hemisphere, who might be bisexual.
Yeah, I never totally understood what they're trying to say with him, because he's definitely a dude, but they kind of play like
he might also be a woman.
Yeah, they play with like Lloyd and Randy don't know if he's really a man, which is kind of transphobic, but
his gender identity and his orientation are both kind of mysteries.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Also, bonus points. Gay people exist in the Trails universe.
That is true.
Which is like, okay, they're just there. They don't make a big deal about it, but it's like, okay, homosexuality exists.
Yep.
I can't think of another fantasy series, a JRPG series, where there were homosexuals at all.
Well, there's the awful stereotypes in Persona 5.
Okay, yeah.
Who want to molest a 16-year-old boy.
I understand. I think I heard in the Royal they cleaned that up a bit. I haven't played the Royal.
I haven't gotten that far in Royal. I wouldn't hold my breath.
No.
But yeah, no, that's true. I like the extended characters they have in this one as well, especially Risha. Everybody loves Risha.
Yes.
Risha is a dancer with a heavy chest
and that poor girl.
A heart of gold, but she's also an assassin.
So many heavy chests in this game.
That's really true.
And what's funny, so time does pass as the series goes on. So from like Trails in the Sky 1 to the end of Cold Steel 4 is
6
something
years.
like 6-7 years.
Because 8 years has passed with like the new game that's Japan only right now.
And so to show that time has passed and that some of the characters have grown and matured, when they show back up again in Cold Steel near the end, I guess a decision was made to just have all the female characters go up a cup size to make it clear that they're older now.
Because that's how breasts work.
For Ellie, that was just
bigger as you get older, even when you're an adult.
If you just Google images of Ellie in Cold Steel 4, it is ridiculous.
It really is.
It is absurd.
She was wearing in the Crossbell games. She wears a more modest top.
There's no way to have it be modest in Cold Steel.
And then in the Cold Steel games, yeah, she's unbuttoned it. Basically.
She puts Tifa to shame.
It's true.
It's ridiculous.
She would be in a wheelchair in real life.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and Randy talks about them, how they've gotten bigger. Mm-hmm. He actually calls it out in a comment. But we're talking about Crossbell.
We are talking about Crossbell. No, they're really good.
Yeah, without going into like mechanics specifics and plot specifics, I don't have much else to say about the Crossbell series other than they are just really good. The two games are a big improvement over Trails in the Sky, which was already good.
Mm-hmm. Another thing I like about them that they really, you kind of start to see in the Crossbell games is how technology advances, because part of the plot of these games is that 50 years ago, there was what's called the Orbital Revolution, which is basically like the Industrial Revolution, except that they went from, the way I look at it, is they went from the technology of like pre-Revolutionary War America, so like 1760s, and they got all the way to like the 1990s with dial-up internet, but in 50 years. And what that does to all of the countries on this continent when you have technology that moves that fast. Because just between the Trails in the Sky games and the Crossbell games, which is a 2-year time period, they've developed cell phones.
Yep.
Your orbments that you use to cast magic in the Sky games are like pocket watches. And then in Crossbell, they are cell phones.
And they're setting up computer networks.
Yes, and they're setting up, like, that's a big thing in the Crossbell game, is that part of the reason the 14-year-old is on the police force is because she's a genius and she's helping set up the Orbital network that is basically DSL internet. So I like how they address the advancement of technology and how it affects society, basically. And, you know, you have grandmas and grandpas who are like, I was driving in a horse-drawn carriage when I was a kid, and now there's a cell phone. So that it's extreme, and I like the way they handle it.
So, I think that's pretty much all we have to say about the Crossbell games, other than they're great, and you can see our individual reviews of them when they happen. honestly have no idea release-wise. We've recorded one of them,
Oh, yeah.
but I don't know if it's aired already by the time you're hearing this or if it's in the distant future. So,
And then I'm not going to play Azure until we get an official release for it,
yes,
which is supposed to be in 2023.
So I
spring
haven't.
or something.
I've mentioned once or twice that I play games differently when I'm doing them for a review versus my personal time. I have not done a review play of Azure, so I also need to do that when it's released sometime in 2022, late 2022. Although I think this episode is coming out in 2022, honestly.
I mean, I don't know what year it is. I feel like 2019 was 400 years ago. So
Certainly feels like
time is a man-made construct.
So next month, though, we will wrap up this discussion for now by addressing the Trails of Cold Steel quadrilogy, which is actually
Tetralogy.
It's a duology.
It is a dual duology.
So we will see you guys then.
See you then.
And thank you for listening.
Bye.